Today I've got a short story for you to help you use the small print against the big company. But if you're just joining our community, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe and hit the bell icon so that you don't miss out on the next video. So most of you don't really want to read the small print, and it's usually left to us lawyers to argue over the small print, be it in the formation of a contract or by the time you get to court. This is one of the reasons lots of people get frustrated and disappointed when they actually get to court, because they realise that the small print has made them lose the case. But worse still, if there's something in the small print that helps you and you don't realise it, and you don't have a lawyer look at it for you and tell you which bit of the small print is really helpful, and then you maybe could have won the case, but only if you knew what small print to look for. So until a couple of years ago, I was a member of a fairly prominent gym, and I was paying in the region of £100 a month and using it fairly frequently. But as a martial artist, a regular gym goer and a bit of a fitness enthusiast, I regularly suffer different injuries. In this particular instance, it was a long-standing pain that I'd had in my shoulder. I've no idea where this pain originally came from or whether there was an actual injury there at all. It got to a certain point that it was just too painful to go and use the gym facilities as I would normally do. So I approached the desk and they were able to suspend my membership for a reduced payment every month. So after many months of suffering with pain, I get an MRI scan booked. It confirms that I had bursitis all around the socket joint and the supraspinatus, which is the muscle that goes through the gap in the point of the shoulder and connects the arm, allowing it to make this kind of movement here. If you want more information on pain management and stretching, head over to Black Belt Secrets, now my sister channel, where I go through lots of stretching and martial arts techniques. But sometime later, my shoulder still hadn't improved, so I approached the desk again to cancel my membership entirely. They obviously asked me why. I told them it was because of a medical condition, something to do with my shoulder, so they promptly offered to freeze my membership on a long-term basis, but without charging me a monthly fee at all. I thought this was ideal because at some point I might want to go back to the gym, wouldn't want to pay a rejoining fee, so I agreed to a free suspension. Some months later, however, I realised the fees were still coming out of my account. So I got in touch with the gym and said, look, I want to cancel my membership like I did in the first place, and you did say it was going to be a free suspension, so I'd like those fees back. The gym did agree to refund the freeze fees for that period of time, but they told me I had to wait for the freeze to end before I could request cancellation of my membership, and even then I'd have to pay 3 months notice. They also said that the minimum freeze term was going to be another 2 months, and then I would have to submit my notice for 3 months cancellation. Obviously this was going to be many hundreds of pounds that I didn't really want to pay, because by this point I just wanted to cancel the membership. But the gym refused to cooperate and said I had to pay the fees. So believe it or not, it was only at this point that I decided to look at the terms and conditions of membership. So just a few words about terms and conditions within a contract. Now, whilst most big companies are just going to set their terms and conditions and they become part of the contract and they are somewhat forced on you, they cannot be what we call an unfair term. An unfair term in a contract, particularly when there's a consumer involved, is likely to be rendered unenforceable. It's also possible, whilst most people won't do this, when you're signing this contract to cross out one of the terms that you don't agree with. The salesperson is likely to just ignore the fact that you've crossed it out, thinking that this is going to be a binding term anyway. But if you've crossed out a particular term before signing the contract, it's unlikely to become enforceable because it will be deemed that you haven't agreed with that term. So back to the story and looking at the terms and conditions, sure enough, there is a section for injuries and medical evidence and terminating the contract. Part of those terms said that if I had medical evidence of some kind of injury that's going to prevent me from using the facilities, that can allow me to terminate my membership at the end of the month in which I gave that evidence. After several exchanges, the gym requested a letter from a medical practitioner to say that I wouldn't be able to use the facilities. I obviously replied to say that the MRI scan should be sufficient evidence, as it is a medical scan after all. A little while later, the gym replied again to say that that evidence was now out of date, as it wasn't within the last 3 months. But this was only because of the time wasted going back and forth after my request to cancel the membership, which of course was within 3 months of the date of the evidence. The gym then reluctantly, it seemed, accepted that that was sufficient medical evidence, but insisted on another month's payment of membership fees before they'd let me go. Suffice to say, I wasn't happy to pay any more membership fees, particularly as their own terms and conditions said that they should terminate my membership the same month when I gave that medical evidence. Now, I've heard lots of stories from lots of people that have tried to cancel memberships like this, and they've had debt collectors and all kinds of threatening letters coming through the post to pay these fees, even when all along there may well have been a term in the contract that allowed them escape of the contract in the first place. So the moral of the story here is don't be intimidated by terms and conditions. They might be long, they may be written deliberately small to make it seem uncomfortable to read, but they should be in plain language so that you can readily understand it. And don't forget, if a term is particularly unfair, then it may well be rendered unenforceable anyway. But very often there's going to be a term in there that will help you in your particular situation. I very often say that law should be about common sense and objectively reasonable, and particularly in consumer contracts there are several protection mechanisms to ensure that customers are treated fairly. Now, this is certainly not to say that consumers are always right, and it's certainly not to say that consumers have a right to be rude, argumentative, or disrespectful. But next time you have a problem like this, don't be afraid to look at the terms and conditions, look at what your rights are, and dare I say, make sure you subscribe here because I'll be going through lots of different ways that will help you. And in the meantime, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.